Well, thank you guys for coming back out. I hope everyone's Thanksgiving was grand. We were out of town, and my wife, I have to say, has been after me. Excuse my voice today. I've had this cold that's just been haranguing me. She's been after me to do my bio. I had on the flyers the Gregoriana insignia, which is a pontifical school in Rome, and I was going to put Loyola Marymount on there, but I was like, I'll just put Gregoriana. So it was. I actually was studying for the PhD out there, or studying to finish a licentiate degree. After we'd been married a couple of years, I taught here at Garces, and I'd already taken a master's in philosophy, and I knew I was going to do another graduate degree, a further graduate degree in philosophy or theology, and so we thought, why not go to Rome? They've got this amazing pontifical university system, like 7 pontifical universities there in town, and it's just a charmed life, especially for a couple of young married people who are just banging around the city, and it was a really good time. So once we were out there and we were having a good time of it, we thought, why not go for having our first baby out here? And that's our daughter Abigail, who's 4 now. I ended up putting aside the doctoral degree because when she was born 8 months later, she was born with some complications, so we were sort of frightened back stateside and all of that, and then that's when I put aside the graduate studies. They gave me a licentiate, but I went to law school, so that's how I ended up there. But it was a very charming 14 months we ended up being over there, and really their pontifical university system, I went to like a 600-year-old school, and it's second to none, in terms of the education you get, and it's dirt cheap. So, when people say that their kids want to do a study abroad program, that's sort of the tourist version. You got to learn Italian. I had some classes in Italian and some in Latin, and a couple lucky ones in English. But if your kids are in college and they want to go abroad and they're serious about it, I recommend you could take a 3-year undergrad degree out there rather than just doing a semester where it's kind of, they're babied and have their hands held through everything. You spend a summer learning Italian, go to Rome, and Pope Benedict is urging us all to make a pilgrimage out there anyway. But so the long and the short, it was a really good time, and until the end of it, that was a scary time with our daughter. But so that's that. Okay. So what I wanted to do was open up with just like I promised you I would do, and like I do every class period when I teach a philosophy course, is, I said this last time too, at the risk of great redundancy, is just recapitulating everything that was said last time in about a minute. And I'm even going to give you if any of you watched 24, we are a fan of that show, to give you the 24, it goes back a couple of lectures. So you'll get a review of class 1 and a review of class 2, hopefully in 120 seconds, and then I'll take your question. And of course, a lot of times the question arises, well, why didn't you give us, the first class in 1 minute and the second class in 1 minute and be time efficient? But it works better when you have the particulars and the notes, and then you can go sync up the big ideas with them. So you go through it first, then you can kind of go around. All right. So my review of week 1, in a word, or in a few words, is that created things, which I called funnily creatures, meaning nature, as a kind of place, time, ourselves, our reason, which corresponds with our intellects, our ratio, fashioned in the likeness of the Logos, Christ, which tunes us into first principles, which also count as created things. All these are created things, as the subject of my sentence. They together tell us about the attributes of Christ and about God. Right? That's the entire first lecture, and that's kind of the stuff of the patristic period. Outside of the Bible, the Bible gives you the particular stories about Jesus' life. By stories, I ought to tread carefully. I don't mean it in some loose constructionist way. I mean it in a tight constructionist way. It gives us the historical narrative of Christ's life. But So that's the Bible, but really the attributes of Christ and the attributes of Yahweh can be gotten at by you doing what we began calling at the end of that lecture natural theology. Natural theology is you look at these creatures and you use these created things, including our reason, to talk about what God must be. Not everything, we don't know everything about him, but we know he must be one. We know he must be all-knowing. We know Christ must be the Logos, incarnation of the Father, things like that. Okay, those come both from the Bible and from our first principles. Any questions on lecture 1? That is about 75 seconds by my count. But. Okay, so lecture 2 then, even simple, because now I don't have to go through all the terms. These same creatures, all those same creative things, once again in conjunction with one another, tell us about themselves as well. So when we talk about natural theology, there's a side, where we're learning about two of the persons of God. And I mean, we can reason some about what the Holy Spirit is, but that's sort of one of those mysteries of faith more. So this is natural theology. We're using our own minds and other aspects of our life as contingent creatures to tell us about God. But then it can also tell us about we creatures and nature, so mainly nature, and about our minds themselves. It must be something that's a dropule of divinity in terms of our created contingent life, our ratio, our intellectus, which attunes us to the ratio, must be something divine-ish. Okay, so those are the first 2 lectures, and then you can feed everything that you have if you did take notes. I see about half of people are, or any particular comments that you're remembering through these big ideas. There's this natural theology thing that we Catholics have. We're going to talk more about tonight. And the creature side and the creator side, God the Father and God the Son, are both the subjects and the objects of our inquiry. The subjects because we can learn about them, and the objects because they're partly what informs our logos. Okay, any questions there? All right. No questions? You opened up last time. I'm not calling you out, I'm just saying. If you're a poker player, I'm saying you broke last time.
Yeah, the only thing that's hard for me to wrap my mind around when you talk about teleology, how you say it?
Teleology?
Yeah, natural, is I'm just saying, God can be greater than we can actually reason and discern out of nature.
Right.
So we may know a piece of what he actually is, but we may not know his entire nature.
Right.
So
That's
I'm
correct.
saying, if you're saying we know God maybe 10%, cool. If you're saying we know 100% of what God is, then that's asking too much, in my opinion.
Fair enough. Yeah. I mean, really no comment to that. No one, yeah, you can't claim, you would make Karl Barth's claims that this natural theology thing is diabolical. Make look a lot more reasonable if you were to say 100% right. But, and that's the thing, I don't want to get fully into that matter, but attribution is talking about sort of the generic terms for the thing, and of course, once again, it's in the weeds. St. Thomas says God's not a genus, and yet we can still apply attributes. Generally speaking, this is why it's an open philosophical question, only a genus has attributes. We don't talk about this. Only man has attributes. You don't talk about this man having attributes. You talk about something more like characteristic. So that's why the term is attribution, because you're precisely right. We can't know 100%. Agreed. Anything else before going on? Anything at all? Because questions are, generally speaking, really good, and this stuff really isn't easy. got a lot of good questions in 1 and 2, so just stop me if you have them. A couple corrections, just because I watched the tape from last time. I was in danger of sounding a lot like saying that Francis Bacon was a Catholic because he thought alongside some bona fide Catholics who are late medievals, like Anselm, Duns Scotus. I don't even know if I mentioned his name, but he's one of the late medievals. Anselm, Duns Scotus, and Suarez, who I think I mentioned. They were Catholics, and Bacon, aside from having a delicious name, fits right in there with that coterie of thinkers as kind of late medievals, and who really ended the medieval period and ushered in the Enlightenment. By way of review, I mean, not to be too pop quizzy about it, I realize that's irritating, but in a word, someone tell me what ended the medieval period and brought on the Enlightenment in terms of these concepts. Reformation. And so that's what tonight's talk is all about. We're going to be talking about the Reformation and the Enlightenment. So, and we're going to be talking about them from first to last, in this sense that the Enlightenment and the Reformation, which kind of started at the same time, are equal and opposite to one another. So specifically what it is about the Reformation and the Enlightenment that I and many others argue ended the medieval period is basically their same reaction to Catholicism. And I like I told you, I'm making a little bit of a different pitch than is usually made about the medieval period. Yes, there are great leaps in technology and things like that. When we want them all. As Catholics, we're fully on board with the science and the philosophy that changed. But in a certain important sense, I argue we took a step back. Does anyone recall what that is? Because it's really important. In a certain sense, the way that we started talking about nature when we crossed from the medieval period into the Enlightenment changed for the worse.
Because you said we quit using teleology at the front end and going to just efficient cost. Just looking at science, it's just the efficient cost.
Well done, right.
Through the efficient cost.
Good. So you'd asked a question about teleology. There's a certain sense, again, I'm not being really precise with these terms. I'm playing to a certain extent fast and loose with them, but there's a certain sense in which that big Aristotelian word intelligibility and teleology tie into natural theology. And tonight we're going to be talking about a big Enlightenment term, natural law. And it predates the Enlightenment, like all of these ideas. But right, so when we crossed into from the medieval period into the Enlightenment, the most distinctive change that happened at all was the movement from the view of a teleological universe, which remember, telos just means